Maloney.
I'm Sarah Mead.
Rose.
Sarah Carroll.
Ray Miller.
So we chose to do season 1, episode 3. It was titled The Nod. The episode starts off with Andre Jr. not doing the nod back to another black male and is clueless what that is, and Dre gets upset, his father. His father and grandfather get upset with him and talk about how it's something that he needs to do culturally. From there on, we see Dre looking for a black friend to meet with his son. Dre goes to different extreme lengths throughout this episode, such as looking at a social club and even forcing his kid to do a pickup basketball game. He then brings over his coworker and his son, and then he begins to realize at the end of the episode that his son might have a different cultural relationship with students of color as well that are different from what he believes what it has to look like. And then the second problem we see in the episode is Rainbow really wants her daughter Diane to become a doctor like her, and so she's talking to Rainbow and she's talking about it and has her go to work with her. And when her mom has to go for an emergency, Diane's left with a nurse and then sneaks into the ER and sees how awesome her mom is at her job as a doctor, and then decides at the end of the episode she also would like to be a doctor.
So when looking at the Lopez article, when we talk about the involvement acts that we would see the Johnson family engaging in, we decided to talk about work as a lesson in life. And the quote we pulled was, "Therefore, the act of taking his children to work served an educative purpose." And we see that a lot with Diane and Rainbow, where Rainbow really wants her daughter to be a doctor. She brings her to work and she's showing her around, and it's very boring. And then the minute Diane steps into the action, it is an educational piece. She wasn't interested in going to college. She was asking in the beginning of the episode, "How many years did you have to go to be a doctor?" Whereas she was immediately immersed, and it became an educational goal for her versus something she wasn't interested in. The other one we talked about was work to learn life skills. And the quote we pulled was, "For the Padillas, success did not mean their children should abandon their migrant culture and immerse themselves into the culture of the school. Rather, they believed their children needed to negotiate the terrain of both the home and school cultures and take advantage of the learning opportunities that were offered in both settings." This is something we see Dre and Andre Jr. engaging in. Dre is really, really set on finding black friends for Andre Jr. when he realizes at the end of the episode, okay, my son does have his friends. You see his son do the nod to another nerd in the school versus doing it to another black male. So we see that interacting with them and how, yeah, he might not be that way, but he still has a school culture and a home culture. And we see this, Dre kind of learns this himself too with his work friend and his family when they kind of collide and it doesn't go well.
So the next thing that we looked at was critical race parenting as it relates to critical race theories. The Burton article quotes, "Critical race theories are ways of thinking about and assessing social systems and groups that incorporate recognition of the following principles." And one of those key principles is race is a central component of social organizations and systems. And this is really the main kind of conflict that's taking place with Dre and Andre Jr. is that he feels that the race of the friends that Andre Jr. chooses is most important in his social organization. However, we also look to one of the goals of critical race parenting, and that is to really give young people a sense of pride in themselves, their communities, and their racial identities. And as Andre Jr. starts to demonstrate that he's kind of unaware of these basic aspects of Black culture, Dre perceives that maybe he has given them too much of Christian, or they're too much in a white community, and that Andre Jr. doesn't have enough pride or knowledge in his Blackness or in his culture. On the other end, with Rainbow and Diane, as we look to parental engagement, the Howard and Reynolds article quoted Researchers have also found that parent involvement is associated with a greater likelihood of aspiring to attend college and actually enrolling. So we kind of look at Rainbow and Diane, and they're having a conversation in the kitchen about how long Diane's going to go to school. Is it going to be 4 years for a marketing degree like her dad, or the 11 years required for a medical degree like her mom? And her mom is very actively involved in talking about college and taking her to work to demonstrate what it's like to be in the medical field. And that parental involvement and talk of college will really go a long way for Diane as far as parental engagement.
Okay. And that, Shelby, leads really well into the community and cultural wealth that the family has. So the strongest one that we probably see is their familial capital. And we see that the parents are very involved. They're concerned about their children. They're checking in on them all the time. They're taking them to work and giving them these experiences. They also have the grandfather who's there in the house with them. So they have a lot of those close relationships amongst family. We don't see in the episode the kind of nurturing of cultural memory and intuition and community history, other than Dre's concerns that his son doesn't have enough of a sense of the community history. But the relationships between them are very tight. They have a lot of social capital as well. We see that they're upper class, they have prestigious jobs, they send their children to a private school, their daughter's popular and well-liked, they're college educated. All of these things come with a lot of social capital, knowing people in particular positions, looking for scholarships, knowing how to navigate complicated systems. And one of the things that we also see is that they have a linguistic capital, so the intellectual and social skills to navigate all of those white institutions and the rules and the norms and expectations of all of those systems as well.
Last question was offer and describe 2 examples of culturally responsive leadership practices that could take place at the school level that responds to problems the Johnson family faces. So the first thing that we mentioned was providing mentorship. So make sure students are seeing people similar to themselves in meaningful roles. Example, like Rainbow brought in daughter for a career day, see an African-American woman as a doctor. Kind of going back to the Khalifa's article, it's not right for students to have their culture identities rejected in school and unacknowledged as a meaningful part of student learning. So in order for Dre's culture identity to be accepted and represented, teachers and leaders can ensure that he has other Black students in the classes when possible, so that he feels his identity is represented. If possible, maybe even African-American teachers or coaches within the community. Just somehow make sure the child's culture is represented somewhere in the school setting. Very last thing, we mentioned that all teachers are also capable of supporting healthy identity development. So teachers have the ability to support positive racial identity development through what they teach and how they can approach it and teach it.